Hi, everybody. Welcome to Our Sinclair. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And today we're going to be talking about Head Over Heels.
Sing it.
Aaron.
Head over heels. Remember that song? You don't really?
No.
Okay.
Who sang that?
That was Belinda Carlisle of the Go-Go's.
Oh. Was that when she went solo?
No, she was with the Go-Go's. But she sang that particular part there. You remember the Go-Go's? Vacation, all I ever wanted.
I think that's the only one I know. Did they have albums and stuff?
Yes, they were around for a long time.
Okay. Well, tell me about the first time you were head over heels in love, Aaron.
First time I picked up an Amiga.
I want to know about the first time that you set eyes on who you thought would be the future Mrs. Dowdy.
Well, let's see. I gotta go way back in the time machine here. I was very infatuated with Gabriella Sabatini.
That's an awesome name. I mean, you could almost just love the name on its own.
She was a pro tennis player. I believe she was out of Spain.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought she was super good looking and was a good tennis player. So,
yeah.
You know, and
the whole package, really.
I'm trying to think. You got to think. I've been around for a while, so my early childhood infatuation. It's so long ago. I don't even remember. You know, and those people were long. I'll tell you. Have you ever seen the Newhart show, the original one where he was the psychiatrist?
Yes. He fell into an elevator shaft.
His wife was Suzanne Plachette.
Mm-hmm.
I liked her. I thought she was a real good-looking chick back in the day. Ann Jillian was another one. So I'm going to go with those three. Those are good choices. What about you?
Claire Danes.
Claire.
My So-Called Life. She was just a little bit older than I was. Man.
I don't know about that one, but.
Well,
Claire
you were in your
Danes.
mid-40s.
Claire
when that show
Danes,
was on.
though. I mean, she's not very exotic or anything.
Well,
Gabriella Sabatini. That's exotic.
Man, I know where.
Claire.
I know where my ceiling was.
No. Even as a child, you had realistic outlook.
Yeah.
You might have a chance with Claire Danes.
She kind of wanted me.
Give me a break.
So, yeah, there's no way to segue from Claire Danes into this week's game.
God, man.
Look at this. Pixels, he's with me.
Oh, there
Thanks,
you go.
Pix.
There's one guy.
Gabriella Sabatini, currently 87 years old, by the way.
She is not. Give me a break.
She's like Diana Ross in The Wiz.
If she's listening, I would love to hear her come over here and just beat you with a racket.
Oh, well, there's no question.
I mean, I'd pay to watch that.
So this week, Aaron, we're going to talk about, this is another isometric title. Why do you think the Spectrum was so, why are there so many isometric titles on the Spectrum, do you think?
It's funny you should ask that. Because I was pondering the same thing. If you look through remember that Spectrum book that we got? It's a little hardback book.
Yeah, Chris Fold sent that to us.
Chris Fold sent that lovely book, and I was looking through it just this week, and there are quite a few isometric games mentioned in there.
Yeah.
And I was thinking that because I don't think graphically. I mean, it's not like other systems can't do them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I guess it's just a fundamental difference in programming, I think, a different way to approach it, and it became. I think maybe some people saw how one person pulled it off and it worked, and they saw, okay, you can use this for other games like this. But I mean, that's just a guess. I don't know.
My personal theory has to do with the fact that you're dealing with a limited color palette, and you can draw an isometric scene in great detail in one color, and it still looks cool, kind of like an MCSer type thing.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. I mean, that's also true. You can do. I mean, we've played two of these things now, and they've both been well drawn.
Yeah,
for sure. So,
yeah,
you might be right, but.
So let's talk about this week's game, Head Over Heels.
So. Now, just to start off, the working title of this, much worse. Foot and Mouth.
Why they thought that this would be an awesome idea, and they fought for this title too.
Ocean was like, get out.
Yeah.
Get that out. Try again.
Yeah. This is not especially in Britain at this time, like this is not a good time.
So this game was authored, they had a little team of people here that worked on this, but John Rittman, and who done Match Day, 1 and 2, and Batman, and some of these I know Batman because it's another isometric game.
Man.
And then Dark Star, which I think is a cool. I used to go to a bar called that down in Louisville.
Wasn't that the name of a cartoon with a cowboy, like a futuristic space cowboy?
I've seen that. That's a real cheap cartoon now. I can't remember. I may be. I don't know. Then Forbidden Planet. I can only hope that it's based on the film and On the Run. So, but Rittman, a guy named Bernie Drummond, a fellow named F. David Thorpe. Which, by the way, I wanted to mention him because he also worked on Beachhead 2, which I'm covering this week on ARG, and Guy Stevens. So they had 4 guys working on this. I think there's a music guy in there, there's a graphics guy, there's a programmer. This is a one-player game on the 48K or the 128K, and it gives you a good. We'll start off with that fact that I like the fact that it gives you a good array of control options. You've got all your joysticks covered.
Yeah.
It's got an easy to set up keyboard setup area, so you can make the controls, because the controls are going to be vital in this.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Now, you want to guess the original price of this when it was released in '87? Take a shot in pounds.
Boy, this was probably a full-priced release. I'd say $29.99.
Oh, way off, Bo. £8.
Really?
£7.99. Yeah.
Cheap as chips.
Yeah, that's right. So when this game came out, I guess the guys were like, okay, we're bringing this game out. So what's the backstory? And they put this backstory together. Listen, did you read the backstory? I
read the docs on this. This is insane.
It is. It's one of the strangest, goofiest things. Here, let me flip over to it. So, Hedius Malthian and Foetus Undrium, those are the two guys, are two spies from the planet Freedom. Of course they are. They are sent to Blacktooth to liberate the enslaved planets of Penitentiary, Safari, Bookworld, and Egyptus, and then to defeat the Emperor to prevent further planets falling under his rule. Captured and separated, the spies are placed in prison headquarters at Castle Blacktooth and must first escape, then break through the market to the orbiting moon base, where they can teleport down to the planets and reobtain the stolen crowns. All right, and eventually they overthrow the Emperor. They can return to Planet Freedom as heroes. Now, that's a pretty crazy plot.
Here's the way I'd do it. Yeah. I'd be like, here's Wacky Dog Guy. He's going to team up with Wacky Catfoot, and they're going to have some fun adventures.
Well, Rittman admitted that the storyline lacked any connection to the game. And in an interview, I never read something like this on Wiki. In an interview for Edge magazine, he stated that he made the whole game up and then added the bull blank in the last 10 minutes. That's what he said.
I can believe that 100%.
That sounds a lot like Hacked Outy.
Yes.
That's the way I would have done it too.
Oh!
That's right. So this game was also now here's something else I didn't know. This game came out for other machines. Apparently, it came out for the Amiga.
Yes.
Which have you tried the Amiga version?
No, I knew there was an Amiga port though.
The Amstrad. Now I've read people that their opinion is the Amstrad version is your premier version for that level of computer. You got the Atari 8-bit and the C64, and apparently there's an unofficial version for the Commodore Plus 4. So we've got a pretty wide
release.
There.
Yeah.
So. Let's talk about this isometric, peculiar game. Let's just go with that. You play two characters in this that you can switch back and forth to at your leisure. And you could even get them together briefly. There's one room where there's a fence between them, and they're separated. And you move these guys to this isometric, let's call it a prison or dungeon or whatever you want to do. Now, I don't know how far you got. I don't know how far I got, to be honest with you.
Well, it's really hard to mask or to track your progress in this game. This is a game where mapping is very essential.
Which I didn't do.
Me neither.
But yes, I tried to memorize where I was going. I will say that's not what got me. What got me is just getting to the point where I didn't know what I was. I'll get to it. So, like Boat said, you play basically you play a head. And then a body with a face, basically, and the head can jump real high, all right, and so you've got that going for you. And I believe the body can actually carry stuff in a sack. I believe is the gimmick. Although I never came across the items and I picked them up, but I don't know what they did or what they're used for. Do you?
Yeah, like the donuts you can fire.
No, the
like
donuts
projectile.
I know, but I picked like a briefcase up, for example.
Oh yeah, I don't know what those do.
So. Basically, there are like 300 rooms in this thing, which is a ton. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's an amazing amount of rooms in this. And this game, it's not fast-paced, but it is a. Can we go with arcade action, or how would you describe this?
I mean,
game?
I would call it. This is an arcade or it's like an action puzzler.
Right. Okay.
Sure,
That's yes. It's definitely a puzzle game. So as you go through this. Jail or prison, you will come across many different rooms of many different sizes and shapes. They all have, they often have archways to come in and out of. Okay, and each room, some rooms are just totally you just walk in and out of them. All right, and then some rooms will have obstacles or objectives. There's often rooms that have spikes on the floor. That old chestnut where if you hit them, your guy dies. And each one of your characters has a different set of lives, and so you can actually kill one guy and have the other one live. And you pretty much, from what I've read, you're boned if that happens. Your guys can jump. The head can shoot if he's got donuts. And you make your way through here. Now, a lot of the puzzle elements are which I didn't realize how. This is unusual to me that this old that they did this. They've got games where you can, or they've got things where you have to push an item in front of a doorway to jump up and get to places. They've got places where you have to. There are platforms moving up and down with like a propeller on the bottom. You have to jump on top of them. They go up a different level. They've got these real wacky rooms where there's these nubs. And you ram into them, and they control this like remote controlled. Like it looks almost like
it's like a chess piece.
It does look like my brain.
Or like an Easter Island head.
You know what a Dalek is?
Yeah.
You know, it looks like someone stapled a Leonard Nimoy head to the top of it. It's what it sort of reminded me of.
Yeah.
But you use these nubs. If you run into them in certain directions, they go.
I thought that was super awesome.
And what I liked about it was that's very clever.
Mm-hmm.
And what I liked about them is that there are a couple times where I was ran into these things 2 or 3 times, and you can move them close to you, and you can jump on them, and then you can jump to your thing. So you have to sort of scope where you want to put them. You can also use them to push stuff, which is kind of cool. They can.
The chat is saying that it's supposed to be a Prince Charles head on a Dalek.
I did read that. Oh, so I got the Dalek part right. I read about the Prince Charles. To me, did it look like Prince Charles to you?
I don't really. Prince Charles isn't one of those faces that's like indelibly pressed into my head.
I know it pretty good, but I mean, to me, it looked more like Leonard Nimoy. But maybe again, I'm American. I don't know, so it doesn't matter. So, but you can move the remote control thing. I thought was neat. You'll get to some areas that are real abstract, like the little helicopter thing might take you up to a level, and when you get up there, all you can do is jump into the abyss.
Yeah, I found that to be strangely disconcerting because in most games, when you do that, that means it's the end, But in this game, you just fall down and you kind of float down and you just continue your journey.
Yeah, that's right. There's also blocks in here that will disintegrate, so you have to be quick. I'll tell you something. There were a couple elements in this where you had to jump on those disintegrating blocks and then quickly jump to the next block and then or like if one of the archways is up in the air, and so you have to go through these things quick, and if you don't, you're dead, or you fall down to the level below, depending on where you're at.
You got to start all over again.
And I mean, so you had to have some semblance of control. Now, before we get any further, I want to talk about something I read and what I did. As I mentioned, you can switch between these guys, all right, and eventually you can get them together. Now. I read someone talking about a way to have them together immediately.
Really?
And so I tried it, and it worked.
Huh.
And so what you do is, there's a little. I'm sure everyone that's played this game for 20 years knows this already. But if you're like me and you're new to it, I thought it was amusing. There's an area, like I mentioned, where there's a fence between your guys.
Yeah, it's like the opening screen almost.
If you move your guys on either side of the fence looking at each other and start hopping, and while you're hopping, you switch to the other guy, and that guy hops. Eventually, if you do it enough times, or if you get the timing right, the head will take an extra jump in the air. He'll clear the fence.
Kind of double jump, yeah.
And then you could unite them. So I started doing that every time to get both of them together to go through.
Did you find it advantageous to have both of them together?
I don't know. I don't know if I did or not. What happened to me in this game a lot, and was I would get to a point. And it happened to me in this one room a bunch of times. There's a slide puzzles. Well, if you slide these, and I know someone's gonna be like, "Oh, all you have to do is this," but I didn't know what to do. I would slide this block I needed to jump on into a corner,
and you couldn't get it out.
And I couldn't get it out.
Same thing happened to me.
And I would leave the room and come back, and it wouldn't reset. Right. I would die, and it wouldn't reset. So I was screwed.
Yeah.
And what sucks is I was playing with save states. Well, you're
screwed.
You screwed your save state up too because you can't. So I'd have to start the game all over. So I played through the same rooms a bunch of times, and so it reminded me a little bit. It's like a less hard, less frantic Manic Miner. It's like, okay, I've done this room 20 times. The jumping element in this is interesting. When you jump, you don't have to touch any you don't have to touch a direction. The guy just jumps forward, and it's the same every time, except for that one glitch. And so you have to gauge. And it's not that tough with the way the grid patterns are set up on the floor to gauge where your guy's going to land.
Yeah, that's one of the great things about this game is that grid pattern, because it allows you to judge distance very well.
That much said, you will still have situations that come up where you miss because of the lack of depth. You know, and it happens a lot. I know right away, one of the first things I did was there are these teleport pads. And so you can jump on them, you hit the jump button and teleport. All right, you do that right away if you play normal. Then there's these other pads that when you jump on, they instantly kill you.
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't run any of those.
Oh, yeah. And so that would happen. That would happen occasionally, where I would come across. I remember, in fact, one in particular, there was a room where the block would disintegrate, and I would stand on top of a block, it would disintegrate, and what's underneath it? The kill spot. Your toes.
That's it. Yeah.
You know, so you're cool. I thought the rooms had a lot of diversity. It's amazing what they were able to pull off with just. This sort of gimmick. With limited architecture, they put up quite a bit of stuff. They made the puzzles interesting. Like I said, there are some that are timing based. The ones with the elevators, at first you just jump on an elevator, but eventually as you go through further, they get more and more tricky. You're having to jump, and like I said, there are these areas that have like that are just empty. And there may be one or two blocks, and you've got to hit these two disintegratable blocks and then jump up and get to that door. There's one in particular where you fall from the other level that I was in, and you have to, because when you're in the air, you can sort of guide head.
Yeah.
And I had to guide him towards the door, and he fell into the door. There was no way to get to the door except from above. You know what I'm saying? Did you get that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And, I will say that the floaty jump mechanic is good.
It works. This is not like Virtua Fighter. This is what you want.
Yeah, in some games you don't want a floaty jump. In this game you absolutely do, because you can position yourself pretty well as you're kind of going along.
Yes, absolutely. What was your take on this? I mean, when you started up, I'm guessing you hadn't played this before this week, right?
Much like you, I was pleasantly surprised by the variety of puzzles. I was expecting it to be, your basic puzzler fare. I was not expecting the Prince Charles head on the Dalek. That's for sure. I thought that for a game called Head Over Heels, they should have incorporated head and heels working together from a much earlier time. I wanted to start out with head and heels and be moving, guys around and setting things up from almost the get-go. To me, that's a missed opportunity. I think that they should have brought the two guys together.
Did you ever
right
get to the point where you could get them?
No. In fact, I watched a playthrough after I got done, and I was far, far away from where that happened.
Yeah, so. I mean, there's 300 screens. That's which I was happy to get to actually hook them back up. Now, there were one of the spots I got to where I couldn't get over up to a certain window. I actually used heels to jump off of, because when you touch him, you're not joined until you join. You're basically and I was able to get to the next room, but I couldn't get him in there. He's basically boned. And so which you don't need him, but I mean, since when you come across the wall, this is a guess. With the cheating, I came across the wall and I'm on his side. The puzzles, I guess, are geared more toward him. Wait, you're basically boned. Yeah. The puzzles in this are tough, aren't they?
Yeah. But I mean, I didn't ever think that they were unfair. I felt like the jump-based puzzles, although they were challenging, I never felt like, boy, I'll never be able to get this no matter how hard I try. Now, one of the downfalls of this game is that you do have limited lives, and once it's game over, man.
Yeah, and if you use up all your lives for one guy, I mean, you're pretty much boned, right? I mean, so I know you have to have. I know at some point in the game, which a point that I never got to this week, you have to have them both to complete mazes. Now, I never got to that point, and despite the fact that I had both of them. But again, there were things that would happen to me. Either I would lose all my men, or I would get in a situation where I got a couple places I just couldn't figure out what to do. So.
Now I will say, because I had a cup of coffee, as it were, with Batman. With the Batman.
Oh yeah.
And
you mean for this week, or you played it before?
Before. Oh, okay. And I will say that I enjoyed this game much more than Batman. This game has a lot more charm. I think the variety in this game is a lot better. I think Batman actually came after this, but I prefer Head Over Heels in a big way.
I read the interview with the fellow that you sent me over, the magazine article. And he's a pretty interesting guy. It's funny how games were done back in those days. It's so
very
different.
off the cuff sort of.
It's so different than the way it's done now. You know, it's real crazy. But you know, when you do a game like this, one thing I liked in the article mentioned this is that they would just have their artists just send over whatever he had, and so this game is bizarre. There's a lot of bizarre, just like the Dalek with the head thing. It's a lot of bizarre stuff going on. Just the whole premise of it's bizarre. The one thing about this game that struck me was, remember when we played way back on the Amigas? We did that the Dwarves game. We always with the 3 dwarves.
Yeah, Lost Vikings.
Lost Vikings. Right? This sort of reminded me of that in a way that you could team up and you could also,
except for the fact that like in Lost Vikings you have to team up right off the bat to get stuff done.
That's right. But one thing about Lost Vikings, this is so bizarre that I kept thinking to myself, if you came up with a better premise for the backstory of this and you use like actual people, like made a spy thing, something, I mean, I think you could really make a really cool serious game. Now I'm not sure not everyone wants serious, but this game is really weird. It's just like, there's a lot of weird stuff going on, and since they admitted that they just took whatever cool art that they had and put it in the game, it made it. I mean, that's also sort of a British thing, I think. We've played several of these really out there games, and this is another one that's really strange. Something else, occasionally music will just kick up. The music in this is probably some of the best music we've heard on the Spectrum. I thought a couple places you'll go, they'll be playing How Much Is That Dog in the Window, you know, or these little ditties.
It is weird how it's like some room, and it always takes you by surprise.
It's loud, of course.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, there's only one volume of the Spectrum music.
Yeah.
You know, I think this game would lose a lot of its charm if you took away the sort of wacky elements.
It would lose all of its charm if you did that. But I mean, I'm talking this would be a more serious game. It's a mission. I mean, you could take this engine. I mean, maybe Batman was like this.
Oh yeah. I mean, Batman is exactly like this, except it's Batman. You know, you're still solving puzzles. In fact, you're doing the same sorts of things. There's conveyor belts and stuff, but they couldn't make it as wacky because they were confined to the realm of the Batman universe. Versus in this game, anything was on the table because it's a freaking dog.
I thought it was interesting in the article where he mentioned that Ocean got the Batman license for peanuts because the movie hadn't came out.
No.
And so it ended up being a very valuable license.
Yeah,
I thought that was kind of cool. But yeah, the overall, I enjoyed this game. I mean, a lot. I thought it was a lot. I spent a lot of time with it. It's a lot like, you know, when we signed on to do Our Sinclair, I thought, okay, these are going to be a lot of rules. I was thinking a step up from like the Atari 2600, something like that. It's amazing to me how advanced, and I'm not just blowing smoke here, I'm dead serious. I mean, it blows my mind how, this is no, just like we've covered a couple of these games, they're no walk in the park, brother.
No.
They put a lot of thought into these things. These puzzles didn't just make themselves. I mean, someone had to sit around and really crank their brain out, just like Manic Miner, to try to come up with all these. It's quite astounding. And like I said, it plays well. Now, I will say, amongst my criticisms, the controls on this, you really have to get in the mindset of isometric, don't you?
Yeah.
It's like, for example, it's just like playing Cubert. It's like the same kind of thing. You have
Let me give you an example. In the first room, remember where you've got those 3 shelves and you can jump up and you can get that power up?
Yeah.
And it took me forever to figure out how to get to maneuver my guy, because when you move over, your guy doesn't move over because you're in an isometric universe. So that part does take a while to get used to, but once you sort of can lock your brain into it, you sort of forget about what you're doing, and then it's okay.
What was the game we covered a while back with the robots? And remember, because in their manual it said, turn your stick sideways. It's basically, and that's what this game is the same way.
Yeah, Quasitron.
Quasitron. You turn that sucker sideways, as a rock would say, but don't finish what he says.
What does the Rock say?
Turn it, show it straight up your candy, etc.
Oh, yeah, that's what I didn't know the Rock said that. I thought that was some other guy.
Oh no, that was the Rock.
Okay,
but it really, I found that to help a little. I tried playing this with the keyboard. Hard.
I would not want to attempt this with the keyboard.
It's pretty hard.
Yeah, there were, and just think about, like, you know, the Spectrum. When this was out, there were tons of people playing this on the keyboard. They played everything on the keyboard. They didn't have the Kempston interface. Well, they weren't made of money.
God bless Mr. Kempston.
Yeah.
But there was so much of this game I didn't see that I can't even imagine what else.
I had a fun time watching the playthrough.
Yeah.
I went through and watched a lot of it, and it's just, It's pleasant. It's a very pleasant game. Even the frustrating parts, I never felt like, boy, this is just drudgery. And I did feel that way with Lost Vikings.
And I will say, yes. And I will say that the one thing about having these small, this is not like, Minor was stress pounding you down. You have to get there nonstop, so it's not like that. But
this is a more leisurely puzzle game. It is,
and now. And generally, you're not going to get instantly screwed the second you come in and you don't do something immediately. Now there are plenty of levels where they're just random killers roaming around. You got to jump over them or avoid them. But for the most part, you're okay. At least the parts I saw. There's something to be said for these one room at a time. Flip screen things. I kind of like that because it does feel a little more like leisurely.
And it sets everything out in front of you. You know that everything you need to complete this puzzle is in this room. Yeah. And that's a good feeling.
And the graphics really are astounding, aren't they? This reminded me of something. I'm surprised that this didn't get a Mac release. This reminds me of something you play on your Mac.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Doesn't this look, can you imagine that with the Mac's graphics?
If this would have come out from an American developer, I think it probably would have got a classic Mac release.
You could have easily monochromed this thing up. Now, I will say the colors in this are straight up solid. They change every screen, but there's no real color clash or any weird. It is what it is. Is it the most colorful game? Absolutely not. The rooms are different colored.
Yeah.
But that's pleasant enough. Really, graphically, this one's right up there at the top of the heap. It's a gorgeous game.
Absolutely.
I think. And like I said, Mac. It reminded me a lot of the Mac games we played. We weren't the only ones that dug it. By the way, I'm assuming you dug it.
I did.
So I looked up some reviews on this thing. Our Sinclair gave it a 9 out of 10 in the June '87 issue. Crash gave it a 97%, which is a huge. It also got Your Sinclair and Sinclair User both gave it 9 out of 10. We both got a Crash Smash Award, which I'm guessing that's the big game of the month.
Oh, yeah.
It got the Sinclair User SU Classic. It was also on other computers. It was very. This blew my mind when I read this. I got to add it. In the Amstrad Action magazine, they named this the 10th best Amstrad game of all time.
Wow.
And the Amiga Power gave us the 24th best game of all time on the Amiga. We're gonna try that. How did we miss that?
The 24th
That's
best
what
game
Amiga
of all
Power
time on
said.
Amiga
Power.
Wow.
Now, this is another added bit of wackiness here, but I looked this up on eBay.
What's it tell you about the Amiga catalog that this is the 24th best game on the Amiga, a Spectrum port?
Well, listen, it's a good game.
I'm not knocking it. I'm not knocking it.
It may. I saw some. There's a PC version of this as well. We were talking about on Discord, and it looked good. It was full color. This game is not ruined by adding color.
No,
but it's not ruined by not having it either.
Yeah.
So I looked this up on eBay. Now, whenever we look up these Sinclair games, it's a mixed bag, isn't it, Bo?
Sometimes, yeah, it just depends because cassettes are just they're such an ephemeral format, so they're so easily ruined.
Well, get this, okay? I found this game on eBay, and these are items that have already sold. I want to tell you these numbers. In the UK, this sold for the full cassette, $32, $40. And a couple of them sold for $65.
So it's a high dollar game.
Now, right now, if you hurry, there's one on eBay right now for $8 to start off. Who knows where it'll go?
Right.
That's probably the most expensive card I think we've covered. That's expensive for a cartridge
or a cassette.
A cassette. So, won't be adding this one to the collection, I'm afraid. But still, this was another lovely surprise. I enjoyed it.
Our Discord reviewers, they agree. They agree.
Oh, okay.
Graham Vebke says, influenced by Ant Attack and Night Lore, Head Over Heels improves on those games by using a floor grid for better judging of objects.
Yes.
It requires mapping and some practice to complete a tough but fair game. It's well worth the effort to complete this isometric puzzle adventure. 9 out of 10. High praise from Graham.
Yes.
Chris Fold says, I have fell head over heels in love with this game, just like me and Claire Danes. One I skipped as a kid, but now with the advancement of patience, maps, and save states very important, I've come to find its genius. Loses a point for being a bit too hard, 8 out of 10. And finally, Pixels at Dawn rounds out our review roundup with, I really wanted to love this game and fully expected to, but after putting some time into it, while I loved the quirkiness and the graphics, I found the controls difficult and there were far too many times I got suddenly killed by completely innocuous objects in a game with limited lives. A shame, but not a game I will return to. 6 out of 10.
I mean, again, I didn't get all the way through it by any stretch, but there are so many different elements in it that are unique. I don't think I've ever seen some of this stuff in there that I dug it. Now, that much said, the controls really are the linchpin.
Mm-hmm.
If you can adjust your brain, and the funny thing is, I would sit down with the keyboard and go right to work like it was no problem,
Mm-hmm.
and then I would come back and sit down and I'd be like an idiot. And so you had to get yourself in that
mind space.
Yeah, and then once you get in there, you're okay. And then even still, like I said, the lack of depth and the isometric angles, it's going to play with your jumping and stuff a little bit, just like Super Mario or Mario 64 did. When there's going to be some judgment issues.
Yeah, absolutely.
But overall, another winner. And once I finish up with the minor, this one's next on the docket.
Yeah.
That may be a while.
Hey guys, if you enjoy Our Sinclair and you want to watch us live record this show, you can join us every Friday around 5:30 Eastern Time. We usually record our Amiga podcast first, Amigos, and then we do Our Sinclair right afterwards. You can join the fine folks in chat like Gary James is here, Free Lunch, Graham Vebke, Duncan Stiles, Henrik Anderson, Traegard 1982, Pixels at Dawn, Dasley. Thanks guys so much for being here with us.
Lobsterminator X.
Yeah, Lobsterminator. It's always a good time over in the chat. We record this live on YouTube, so if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, Amigos Retro Gaming, please do. We also want to thank our fine Patreon supporters, Eric Nelson, Harbonaut, Graham Vebke, Frodo NL, Tapes from the Crypt, Pixels at Dawn, Chris Folds, Paul Harrington, and Christopher Hassall. If you'd like to support Our Sinclair, you can go to patreon.com/Our Sinclair to do so. We'd love to have you. If you join up with Clive's Club, you can even pick the games that we do every week.
And they're on fire.
They're
on fire.
They're only picking winners. Next week, Aaron, we are going to go back to the shooter realm.
Okay.
One of your favorite genres, and we're going to play one of your favorite games, I think.
Okay.
We're going to play R-Type.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard nothing but good things about it, so I'm looking forward to trying that one now. I've played R-Type on many different systems.
Cool. It's going to be awesome. Well, guys, thanks as always for listening and or watching, and until next week, rewind tape
and press play.